Mics, camera, action.
Nice.
And lights. We have lights here.
Mike's lights. Mike and Ike's.
Mike and Ike's. This is brought to you by Mike and Ike.
When was the last time you had a Mike and Ike? What
You
were
have to
those?
say that slow.
I know. You got to be really careful when you say that.
Mike and Ike.
And Ike.
Mike and Ike.
What were the flavors of those?
I don't even know. That was like
Were there red? I think I liked the red ones.
That was like a movie theater exclusive.
Yeah.
You don't go to a store for candy and buy Mike and Ike's. That's wild.
I feel like it's a really old timey
yeah,
candy.
kind of like butterscotches.
Butterscotch or Bit of Honeys. Remember mom really liked Bit of Honeys?
Yeah.
Those were so gross. Those things would get stuck in my teeth and, would just never leave.
Yeah.
And Whopper. No, not Whoppers. What was the other one? Milk Duds.
Milk Duds. I like Milk Duds.
Well, yeah, I like the taste, but again, at some point you want to be done eating them. And then when they're stuck in your teeth, they just don't move.
True.
Those things are tough. Favorite movie candy for me would be some sort of an M&M. I'm trying to decide which kind. I'm conflicted. Remember the M&M, was it Crunch? Crunch M&Ms?
They were short-lived.
Do they not? They don't have those
I feel
anymore?
like they only lasted about as long as 3D Doritos did.
Oh, those were good too.
3D Doritos were awesome.
I could absolutely house Doritos.
Like normal Doritos.
At this point, any Dorito.
Oh, and at this point in your life, your chip of choice would also be Dorito.
Well, I'm not picky, but sure. Doritos, potato chips. I get those potato chips, Boulder brand they're really healthy.
Yeah, because they're cooked in avocado
oil. Yeah, yeah, I get those. And I'm not picky. Ridges, thin and crispy, you name it, I'll buy it. And the thing is, I can definitely do it in a sitting.
Oh, yeah. It's not hard to eat an entire bag of chips in one sitting. I remember I was working at the fruit stand.
Oh, God.
Which hasn't come up really in conversation quite yet. I used to work at a roadside produce tent. That was my college job. It was an awesome job. And it was right next to a gas station. And so when I would get hungry, it would be gas station food. Obviously, it was more of a blue collar job than a white collar job. We had the gas station diet. And I remember getting a full bag of Cheetos, eating the entire thing, and then just throwing up. Immediately throwing, like it was at like the last.
And you just had it or what?
Handfuls of Cheetos, not
you can't
one
just have
Cheeto
one
at a
time. Who's got the time for that?
So last handful went down, and immediately it was like I threw up into my produce garbage.
Oh, what happened? You just
ate too many Cheetos.
Chester the Cheeto is get out of here.
The good news is then I could have more later.
Oh, have you had Cheetos since then?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that didn't. They didn't make me sick.
Cheetos used to be the thing that I would get when we would go to Blimpies as kids.
Blimpies, that wasn't a big chain. I feel like there's a lot of regulars out there who are saying Blimpies. What's that?
It's like the Walmart version of Subway.
Oh, it was better than Subway.
I liked it more. And they had pitas, which was, pitas are healthy.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like everything at Subway is healthy. It was a confusing time for nutrition when we would be at Blimpies. I remember thinking no matter what I ate, because it was from Blimpies, it's healthy. So I'm going to get a pita and I'm going to get Cheetos and I'm going to get a macadamia nut cookie.
Yeah, and that was when Subway was just bragging all about Jared too.
Yeah.
Look what happened.
Things change. Today, we want to talk about conflict management with people who spend a lot of money to work with you. But before we dive into that, we want to set the stage. We want to set the stage and just let there be a general acknowledgement of something before we dive in. That thing, and we mean this as respectfully as we can mean it, people are dumb.
People are dumb. And
not you, of course.
You're probably listening to this and you're like, absolutely, that's true. And that's the funny thing about that reality is that most everyone agrees with it, yet somehow most people are dumb. We were together, the two of us. We were both on jury duty a couple of summers ago, which is stupid in and of itself.
Speaking of things that are dumb,
they should have taken one look at the two of us and said, okay, you're both dismissed.
well, and they always say they're every time I mean, if you've ever been on jury duty, you know how it goes, but you all show up in the morning and it's like a cattle call and you're filed into this room.
You're paying $40 to park.
$40
and then they give
to
you
park.
like $9 at the end of
It's honestly, it's so inhumane, the way they treat you on jury duty, but they make you watch the same movie every single morning. And it basically is saying how you have all been randomly selected to blah, blah, blah.
So random. They're saying the word randomly.
They keep saying it.
Yeah, random selection. They say it so many times that you just know that there's nothing random about it.
And it's not random, because if it was random, think about that. Danny and I were on jury duty at the same time. They claim it's completely random
For Hennepin County.
right?
Not for some small city inside. It's like for the entire county, we both got summoned.
What are the odds
for the same period of time?
What are the odds that this random selection process and he was the only one I knew in the whole room of every single person that could have been called, that the other person I knew in the room happened to be Danny?
So
It's not random.
we ended up getting called to the same trial, the same jury selection process. So it was us and I want to say 25 other people, maybe 26 other people.
I think there were 30 total at that point. So
30,
it would have been, 28 additional people.
So they're asking you all of the questions, just sort of the qualifying questions based on the case that they're going to have. Speaking of people are dumb. One of the questions was, does anybody have any ill will towards police in general? And nobody.
Everyone was like, no,
Not me.
I'm totally unbiased, totally cool.
And that's what they were getting at, because this was a case involving law enforcement in some capacity. Nobody said anything. And then they start talking about something different. I believe it was violence and surgeries, something like that. And this one lady says, well, I actually recently had surgery because I was shot by a police officer. And everyone's looking around, including, you can see the attorneys like looking at themselves. So why didn't you answer the question?
They asked that. The judge asked. So when we said if you had any ill will about the police, how come you didn't raise your hand? She said, oh, because I forgot.
But it turns out she hated the police.
What was it? Did she get shot in the head? Straight through the memory lobe?
Anyway, but in jury selection, one of the qualifying questions was, raise your hand if you feel as though you have common sense.
30 hands.
Every
Straight up.
single person raised their hands. And I'm looking around.
Including
that lady.
Including the lady who got shot by the cops and totally forgot.
I'm looking around and it's like, I have been on this earth for too many years to think that 30 out of 30 adults have common sense.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
People are dumb.
Being on jury duty is miserable, and I hate it. And you probably will hate it too. And it also, as though there wasn't enough reason not to commit a crime that would put you on a jury trial, it absolutely makes me think, well, now I for sure am never going to go to a jury trial.
Seriously.
Because if I had a room of those types of people deciding my fate, no thank you.
We both got called in, just the two of us, with the judge and the attorneys. And we knew exactly what this was.
Well, everyone on jury duty was laughing too, because everybody knew we were twins. It was like no secret. And
so we knew we were about to get dismissed. This was on like day 2.
We were feeling pretty good about this.
So we sit down and we're pretty confident. I think I know what this is about, Judge Daniel. I know what this is all about. And one of the attorneys was like, so are either of you related to, and then the judge or the attorney says a name. No. Are you sure? Yeah. I don't know if it was because we have police officer haircuts or what the deal was.
I was wearing my police officer uniform.
Yeah. Kenny was impersonating a police officer at the time.
I rode my cop car.
Your little,
I wanted one of those auction cop cars.
Your plasticky sheriff's badge. Yeah. But it turns out they just wanted to make sure that neither of us were related to somebody involved in the case. And then they sent us right back out, and then we had to go back and finish the jury selection
for
process.
days. Both of us were released after a week of jury selection, and
honestly,
it could not get me out of there.
We were
fast
trying
enough.
to get released, and you have to we found out in that jury selection, they wanted somebody who had really strong feelings about the police. We just didn't know which way.
Exactly.
So
we didn't know what to say.
I was bleeding blue, admittedly. I was all about if the police say it, I am on board with it. And if the police tell me that the sky is yellow, I believe it.
Mm-hmm.
That is not what they wanted to hear.
No.
I got dismissed.
Case dismissed.
And then there were many other people who were walking a much finer line, and they ended up on the jury.
This is what I'm going to say next time I'm in a room on jury selection. They say 5 years will go by before you get called again. Next time I get called, I'm going to say, listen, here's what I'm going to do. If I'm on a jury, I'm just going to vote whichever way everyone's going to vote. I'm not going to use my brain. If we're about to sentence the person to the death penalty and I think he's innocent, I'm going to go with it because I got to get back to work.
Guilty.
Guilty. Let's move on.
He actually did it to me.
Let's go home. Yep, I'm in.
Case closed.
Yeah. People are dumb. Is that a mean thing to say? People are dumb.
Well, no, because everybody agrees with it. And we are not belittling or talking down about any of you regulars, because as we say, people are dumb.
You're not dumb.
As we say, people are dumb. You have all sorts of examples that you're coming up with on your own. But for whatever reason, everybody knows that. Everybody thinks they have common sense. Yet somehow all of us business owners end up in these stupid conflicts with people because common sense is lacking, it seems. And sometimes the conflicts are legitimate, but oftentimes it's like, hello, what are you thinking?
Yeah, why are we even having this
Like literally,
conversation?
I don't know what the thought process is to get us to the point where we're in this conflict.
And that's the problem. So let's talk about what you should do when you're in conflict with a customer or a client, probably a customer. Because chances are you're not going to want to have a long relationship with someone who's conflict driven. We all know those people too, who thrive on conflict.
Oh yeah, they love it. Love putting up a fuss.
So assuming that's not you, and assuming you're running a business because you have a business to run, it is inevitable, unfortunately, that you're going to be in situations that you have to manage a conflict with someone, and sometimes it's your fault, and a lot of times it probably isn't your fault, but it doesn't matter because you're in the situation. So the first thing to keep in mind, and this has saved us so many times, the more quickly you can respond, the better.
Speedy response.
Because oftentimes when people are reaching out to a company, they're not expecting to hear from anyone. They're expecting either for it to just totally be ignored, never to hear anything ever, or they're expecting some sort of a response many days later from a robot.
And here's the thing too about a quick response. And I'm not saying an immediate response.
You should not respond immediately.
Do
not do that.
We'll get into that. A quick response, because people who are conflict driven or who are upset about things, time makes it worse.
They use that time to snowball their emotions and to build the frustration.
And sometimes just hearing something from you or from a person is enough to talk them off the ledge that they've walked out onto.
It kind of feels like, for us, it almost feels like about half the time. Half the time, just the fact that we respond within, 24 hours or so puts that person completely back to a level-headed place. But not all the time.
Unfortunately, it's not 100% of the time.
So because people's expectation is that they're never going to hear anything, and even if they do hear something, it's not going to be from a real person. If you can respond to the person who has the conflict or the issue in a somewhat reasonable time frame, generally speaking, that's going to go a huge distance for you. Now, if you're dealing with someone in a conflict, my advice to you, and this is the advice I give to all of the custom clothiers in our mastermind, it's one of the first pieces of advice actually that we talk about. Get a paper trail. And not just to use for conflict. I really think most business owners should have a paper trail in however they're talking to their clients or their customers, because it's really helpful to be able to look back at information that was talked about.
And not only is it helpful if you end up in a conflict, but it's helpful as you grow your business too. Because as your business grows, let's say you bring somebody else onto the team, there are going to be times where you have to forward communication, or other people have to have eyes on things as well. So it's not the best move to be doing all of your business communications on the phone, because not only will you not have a paper trail, but that isn't necessarily setting you up to be able to grow down the road either.
Who's a good phone talker? Because you're not.
I'm not.
And I'm not either.
But there are people who love to be on the phone.
Who do you think is better between you and me being on the phone, you or me?
Well, it depends on the situation. I'm not going to get rude on the phone. But I also am going to hang up and say, I should have said this.
This is the problem with the two of us, is neither of us can multitask. So if one of us is on the phone, I think, maybe this is just an inflated sense of self, but I think I'm a little bit better at receiving information while I'm on the phone and being able to work it into the conversation.
Sure.
I think that's from my years being a TV broadcaster, hearing my producer talk in my ear while I'm on live TV.
Mm-hmm.
I'm able to do that. You, on the other hand, no offense, are trash.
Yeah, I'm horrible. I can't read something. Like Kenny will often, I'll be on the phone with somebody, he'll be like typing
a note to him.
Notes.
Yeah.
And I'm not even going to look at it. I can't. My brain isn't wired that way.
It's hard. So I get it. And it is hard. And it takes a 1,000,000% of my focus when I'm on the phone. So it's really hard for me to accept incoming information aside from what I'm talking about.
Like,
on the phone.
I can't imagine saying even this and having somebody talking in my ear.
Yeah, it's not great.
What would they say to you? Put your wiener back in your pants?
We could see your hands.
Kenny, your wiener fell out again.
I only heard that one a couple times, but it would be like they'd be counting down to break, or they'd be saying, move on, go to the next story.
Okay,
or
gotcha.
something,
Just like something really quick.
Stop talking. Yeah.
Okay.
Something like that. So, yes, that was usually what they were saying to me through my earpiece. But it is hard to be on the phone. I think it's really hard, and I suck on the phone. So that's part of the reason why we primarily funnel our conversations through email. But it has proven time and time again to be the most beneficial, because you have this sort of mutually understood idea that if you're in an email correspondence, you have some time to respond. I'm still going to advise you respond as quickly as is reasonable, but I would also recommend that you do not respond too quickly. The thing about emails, you have a little time, you can put it in a draft, you can have ChatGPT help you make it more nice.
Yeah, if you are in email communication with somebody, nobody is expecting a same hour response.
No.
That's not the expectation. So even if it takes 24 hours, oftentimes people are surprised at how quickly they got a response from you, even if it took an entire day. Thanks for the quick response.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. But if you think about the other forms of communication you could be talking through, whether that's on the phone, okay, shoot. Now you got to respond in real time, and you both better remember what was said. That's the other problem that's tough, is who knows? It's a he said, she said situation. If you're texting your client, there's very much an active element to it, and there's an expectation that you're responding in relatively like minute to minute. Yeah, not real time, but minute to minute, as long as it takes you to type out a response.
Instagram DMs, there's that read receipt.
Yeah, people are watching. You can see when you're typing, so they know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where any other form of communication we've found, it does require, and the expectations are, I'm getting real responses real quickly. It doesn't matter if it's 9 p.m., I'm hearing something. Where email, the general expectation is I hear something within a day, and I'm not going to hear anything after business hours.
And if I do,
it's a bonus.
And they're grateful. So even just in the form of communication you're using, you can actually blow someone's mind in a positive way. Let's talk about what to say. Okay, so let's assume that we're talking, there's a paper trail now. We've established that. Let's talk about what we're saying in this email.
Sure. So somebody emails us and they're unhappy with a product. Hey, I got this and this thing is wrong.
Well, too bad.
Death penalty.
Guilty. Yeah. So I think the first thing is whatever the problem is, whether it's real or not, whether it's their fault or not, you do have to acknowledge their frustration. You do not have to apologize necessarily. However, if you screwed something up, you should.
Absolutely.
But whatever they're frustrated with, acknowledge it. So sorry that the product is wrong. Let's think of a product so we can use this example.
Should we use something from our business?
Sure.
Okay, so let's say,
No,
well,
let's
no,
not.
that
Let's
doesn't
not.
work because we have face-to-face.
Yeah,
with people.
it's going to be a little bit different. Let's think of the regulars.
A business they might be in. Let's say it's a photographer.
Okay.
They received the album back from whatever they hired the photographer to do, and there are a number of pictures that they don't like.
They don't like the photo. Okay, so there's some things they don't like.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So, not necessarily quote unquote wrong, right? Not necessarily your fault, but your client, your customer isn't thrilled. So that's now a conflict you're dealing with. So sorry to hear that you're unhappy with those photos. Once you've acknowledged that,
From there, it's important to acknowledge it so that they understand that you hear them and that you are hearing that they are frustrated or unhappy or it's not meeting expectations, whatever it is. From there, what we do is we dive into emotionless language and fact presenting mode. Now, we've found that it's important to not be emotionless and not sound like robots, but it's important to not allow emotions to drive the rest of this conversation. Because if you enter into a position where you're getting all worked up and you're getting defensive and you're trying to put blame back on the client who's unhappy, there's nowhere to go but down from there. So if you can remain calm and keep a level head and move forward with, presenting facts or stating things that are objectively true or false, that's helpful.
keep it factual, keep it as unemotional and impersonal as you can, right? This is just basically to neutralize it and to take it out of emotion and to put it back into factual objectivity rather than subjectivity. I hope that's making sense. One really easy way to do this is to, as you're looking through your drafts, as you're putting emails together and you're looking through things, take the word you out. Take the word you out of this language and speak much more. You can dance around the word you, and you could even have ChatGPT help you with that. Type out a message and then put it through chat and say, please remove all language that has to do with you. Make this more impersonal and nicer.
Yeah, this is a good use for ChatGPT at this point. Obviously, there's no shortage of ways to use AI, and certain industries are able to utilize it much more effectively and able to loop it into what they already do. But this communication with clients is a way to really be able to utilize ChatGPT for what it can do right now, what it's great at now, and cleaning up language, making things flow, removing personalization, and removing the word you, like you said, is important because then customers don't feel like you're talking directly at them.
As someone who has a tendency to get defensive, and I do, and I'm sure there are many of us out there that can relate to this, that word you, it puts you on the defense. And if you're using that word in your communication with someone in a conflict, they're going to get defensive. It is absolutely inevitable. So anything you can do that may help sort of calm things down and bring the temperature down is going to be your best friend. Now, that being said, the other thing that's really important to keep in mind is communicating through email has pros and cons. The big con is that, and this is going to be true of any time you're communicating with anyone, but one of the big cons with communicating through email is you're not able to communicate tone, and they are subject to read your words through whatever tone they want to assign to it.
And oftentimes in the middle of a conflict, or if they have used any amount of time to get worked up to then contact you, they're probably going to misinterpret the tone.
Right. And there's just really nothing you can do. But I do really, truly believe that the pros of communicating through email, paper trail, being able to edit your words, multiple drafts far outweigh the cons. Really, the only con being, yeah, maybe they're not going to read this through the right words. Here's how I know. Because there was recently a time we were emailing someone who we were working with. We were in a conflict.
We've had a couple of conflicts in the
been,
last
I know,
couple of months.
It's been.
We don't deal with a lot of conflicts, but we deal with conflicts consistently, I would say.
Yeah, it's not totally. I mean, we're often working through something. Any given week or month, there's something that's in somewhat active mode, and then sometimes it's a couple at a time. And that always feels frustrating. But one thing that I thought was funny, which is a very good example of this, we were working with someone, there was a conflict. Danny calls it Kermiting because there's that meme of
Kermit going crazy on the typewriter.
And it's like there's smoke coming out of it. And so that's what I do. And I Kermit for a while. And then I ran it through ChatGPT and I said, make this nicer. I ran it through ChatGPT again.
Even nicer.
And said, make it even nicer than that. And that's the version we sent. And she still read it wrong. She still was mad. She still thought it was rude. She still thought we were too direct, dismissive. And you think about it in terms of what you're writing. You can't control how they're actually going to read it. If you say, I hope you have a great rest of your weekend as you close out an email. If someone's reading that and they are giving you the benefit of the doubt and they're reading it with a friendly tone, they'll read it as, I hope you have a great rest of the weekend.
It's going to be beautiful out. Hope you get outside and enjoy the sunshine.
But if they're already mad at you and they already think you're an asshole and they're already reading it through a negative lens, they're going to read that and they're going to say, I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. And how dismissive.
Yeah. So annoyed by that. What I really always want to say is, I hope you have the day that you deserve to have.
I know. If only we could. That's what I want to say too. I actually would love to say something else.
Yeah, that's true.
But you can't. But you know what I mean? Things can get misinterpreted and it doesn't matter how neutral the words are that you say.
But I'd rather be in a scenario where I said what I wanted to say and it was misinterpreted in my tone than having been on the phone and not been able to say what I needed to say.
Absolutely. And here's the thing about being on the phone too. If you're communicating, there's a paper trail, you've done everything right and you can tell, oh crap, this person completely is misreading everything I'm saying. They're reading every word angry. That's incorrect. There really is no harm to maybe hop on the phone quickly.
Right.
And let them hear your voice. Let them hear your tone so that you can sort of reset, bring the temperature down, and then get off the phone as quickly as you can. Say, all right, I just wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to chat quickly. Let's get back and I will shoot you an email with my thoughts and then move forward that way. Sometimes you just need a little bit of a reset, but I would strongly advise you don't really get into it on the phone, but sometimes just hearing one another's voice can help really drop the temp.
And what we use those phone calls for is either a breakdown of an email that was just sent, or we use it as a bringing the temperature down, but then we let them know we're going to follow the call up with an email kind of recapping what we talked about so we can get back onto the solution mode. That's the other thing with conflicts is they need to go somewhere. They can't just live in problem mode forever. And that's what your clients want to do. Your clients are contacting you and they want to live in problem mode. This is a problem. I don't like this. This didn't meet my expectations. What you need to be able to do as a business owner is bring that quickly into let's find a solution together mode. That's going to be ultimately what's beneficial. That's what's going to actually make a difference and going to help you if you want to save face, or at the very least help you get out of the situation and be done with this client. So oftentimes, if it's a true conflict, now, like we said, oftentimes just a quick response takes care of whatever conflict they think they're having.
Half the time, just you being in touch with them quickly and respectfully, and they're totally cool. They're fine.
But if that doesn't solve it, what we've found works really well is to come up with a couple of solutions that we're fine with, present those through email to the client, and let them choose what they would prefer.
So just think about that for a second. You're in the middle of it. You're coming up with solutions that work for you. Maybe they're all going to cost you a little money. That's normal. But make them solutions that you can live with, right?
And you're presenting those. That way they feel like they're in the driver's seat, or they at least feel like they have a place at the table where you're presenting solutions. Hey, we could either proceed this way or we could do this. Let me know what you prefer and we'll move forward accordingly. They feel really heard, really seen, really taken care of in that moment because they feel as though you're handing the keys over to them and letting them drive, letting them choose their favorite option. But remember, it started with two options that you could live with. And like Kenny said, sometimes those are going to cost you some money.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the reasons why it's really important to take your margins seriously, is so that you have some extra to be able to make things right if they haven't gone totally perfectly. But that is very important. As you're in this conflict, the quicker you can bring the conversation into, we're solution finding.
Yes.
We're not just problem hunting. We're not dwelling on this thing that didn't meet the expectations. We're having an active dialogue about what we can do to make sure we meet expectations or exceed expectations.
And once they've chosen one of your solutions that you've proposed, they feel not only heard, understood, and taken care of, but they feel like they're back in control. And in some senses, they kind of are. But it's also a solution that you've already recommended because it was your idea. So it's something that everybody can live with. It's probably a bit of a compromise on both ends, but that's totally fine. And that's how you solve a problem. That's how you get out of problem mode and into solution mode, how you manage conflict in a way that works as a business owner. Having said that, anytime Danny and I do this, and this, like Danny said, it's not like it never happens. This is something we manage conflicts a lot. Sometimes I say, wow, we're really firefighters this week.
Seriously.
It feels like there's always a fire popping up and whack-a-mole. I don't know what it is. It kind of comes and goes in waves where there's, a handful at a time.
Before you finish what you're going to say, just remember what you're going to say.
Ooh, okay.
If you can't
try.
What I was going to say is, in our business, oftentimes the conflicts we're dealing with are timeline related, and they're not even conflicts. It's conflicts that the client is making up.
Yeah.
It's deadline that they're getting nervous about us hitting that we haven't even come close to missing yet.
Well, that's wedding clients, and that's a totally different episode. That's actually probably a series.
Seriously.
We'll probably do a series on that. But yes, that is true. What I was going to say is there are certain things that as we're working through things and as we're in the middle of dealing with something, and especially once that thing is put to bed, we will always evaluate. And we will always have a conversation about, okay, here's what happened. How do we feel that went? Do you think there was a reason why that happened as a result of something that we did? Like, basically, was that our fault or not?
Yeah, and that evaluation is really important as we deal with conflict, certainly, but even as we experience things that work, is identifying what did we do to help this? What did we do to spur this on? Is there something that we can change to prevent this or have it not go that way again? And sometimes it does require we make changes in our systems, in our processes, in our communications. And sometimes it's just a situation that we call a 1 in 100. Sometimes it's just that 1% that slips through the cracks. There's nothing we could have done or said on the front end that would have prevented them from having, oftentimes it's unrealistic expectations.
Or maybe we actually did and said everything we were supposed to on the front end. And, you can't control how people receive information. And for some reason, it was just in one ear, out the other. And there really isn't anything you could have done to avoid it, because that happens too. And the more people you work with, the more frequently it's going to happen. And we're in the middle of dealing with something right now, a couple of things actually, one of which we're reworking some processes and we're reworking some language as a result of. The other thing is just we're doing the best we can to just put it behind us and move on, because people are stupid and sometimes people do dumb things. And There's nothing you can do to avoid it. All you got to do is deal with it. And it's always frustrating, but that's just what happens when you run a business. It's just the cost of doing business. So it's important to self-evaluate, but it's also important to be able to recognize that actually there's really nothing I did wrong here. So it is what it is. And I'm just going to do my best to forget about it and move on.
Yeah, because it's going to happen. I mean, there are going to be times where you should change things because you did something wrong. And this client's expectations are out of whack because you didn't help them set proper ones. And then there are times where for some reason this client was expecting that we were going to be able to become best friends and we were going to give them so much more than they purchased and they were going to love everything about it. And they got exactly what they purchased and it's awesome. And we did our job, but that's not good enough for them.
Yeah.
This is the Spark Notes version of conflict management. It's paper trail. It's a quick response through email, which is a different language than a quick response through text, a quick response through DM, a quick response on the phone, a quick response through email with a paper trail,
a quick, neutral, impersonal, factual response through email with a paper trail.
Getting into very quickly solution mode rather than continuing to live in problem mode, and offering recommendations that you're good with. You're the one recommending them.
Plural.
A couple of them.
Not just one. You got to give them a choice. Otherwise, they don't think they had a choice.
Yeah. If you can at all help it, even if you are pretty confident on what they're going to choose or what would work best for them, come up with another one too, so that they can choose. And then you can, as best as you can, bring that train back onto the tracks rather than have it, fall off and somersault and turn into a fiery mess.
Yeah, train wreck. Hope that was helpful. We do want to hear from you. Specific conflicts, if you're ever going through them, we want to help. We want to be as helpful as we can be in helping you identify some paths forward. That is what Appointment Only is all about. We want to help people build strong businesses that support the lifestyle they want to live. And you can't live a good life if you're too busy fighting fires.
Absolutely not.
Whack-a-mole, no way. So send us a DM. If there's a specific question you want answered, if you want us to talk about anything specific topic-wise. And don't forget to share this podcast with a friend or an enemy.
Maybe the client you have conflict with, just give them a share.
Maybe, yeah. I'd be like, hey, here's what I did. Here's it worked. Listen, they said people are stupid. What do you think about that? Do you agree or disagree with that? Share with a friend, rate and review. We'd appreciate it. Your appointment's over. We'll see you for the next one.